Aloha, everyone. I'm Jason Schwartz, your host here at the Neutral Zone, MauiNeutralZone.com. That guy over to my side, I guess this side on screen, that's Sam Peralta. Sam is a candidate for State House District 9, which is Kahalui's seat, which, first of all, thank you for being here with us, Sam. I want to let our audience know, as well as you, I hope to earn your vote also, because I'm running in a council race, 7 in the primary. And they say the more the merrier, but this is a time when we have to be getting ourselves out there. And I thought now's the time to interview as many people, including myself. In fact, at the end, I'm going to ask you to ask me some questions, because as a candidate, sometimes people might think I'm here with a special interest. My special interest is delivering everyone up close and personal so the people of Maui can be aware when they vote.
Not always the time.
Yeah.
Got feelings.
So first of all, thank you. What got you running, Sam? What's your reason for running?
Well, I come from plantation camps and American military from my father's side. From my mother's side, she comes from rural farming areas and immigration in the Philippines. We grew up in low-income housing, and as I was growing up, we transitioned from house to house. But with government's assistance, my parents were able to buy a house, which for the first time I felt stable. And that's what got me thinking that for me as a third generation Filipino living in Hawaii, my culture, this is my home that raised me, I wanted to give people who have the similar story like I do a chance to show that they can lead their places, but also they can rise up into partnering and collaborating with what's happening on Maui. Instead of being passive or having a victim mindset, we can actually engage, we can collaborate, and we also can network, which will be more powerful. And I'm running because I want to represent Maui. I went to Christ the King school where I learned about the great mystery and entering into this mystery of adventure. I graduated from Maui High School where I learned that my brothers and sisters are on this island. And I also am a University of Hawaii Maui graduate in Hawaiian Studies. And that helped me to engage in my culture and helped me to take abstract knowledge and apply it into the concrete. So I worked at Hawaiian immersion schools for 2.5, 3 years. And that's what took the abstract ideas of academics and applied it into real life situations. And I realized that we need more of that. We need experts, we need academics, we need people who are weaving in the different disciplines, but relating it into our spaces, our geography, our biology, our biosphere, and the emerging things that are happening globally.
So, got it. I'm thinking, here we are in Kahalui, and you're going to be in the State House, right? So there you got to make laws. Any specific areas that on the way in you have passion about, or any ideas you might? I know you come in, we're all got to get used to what the game is, but sometimes I wonder if someone has a passion like education. I want to see immersion, like you say. Wouldn't that be great if we could bring it to a wider audience and be able to get Hawaiian back in popularity and as a language to be understood and used?
Exactly.
And all the culture and things, to embrace them in the structure of the government policies and plans. I think that's what you're basically letting me know, right? And
yeah, a lot of my policies geared towards emergent industries. A lot of times we're investing into declining industries, but what's happening this generation with divergent thinking is we're looking ahead of what's coming. So investing into policies of emergent industries, as well as investing into policies of holistic governance, holistic education, holistic health. So things that they call it the spheres of society. We need to be thinking it from not an egocentric point of view, but an ecocentric point of view. So this is where sustainability comes into play. This is where agriculture and what's happening today on Maui is we're finally putting we're streamlining the pieces together, and we're knowing that we need to be sustainable here on this island, and we need to gear our people up to be sustainable, and not just about food, but also as far as living conditions, mental health, emotional health, and physical health. We need to think holistically. And I'm glad you mentioned education. So education reform has been one of my focuses for this campaign, and there's two reasons why we need public education reform. The first one is that we need to educate our children to take their place in this upcoming 21st century economics. International trade, cryptocurrency, artificial intelligence, cannabis laws coming up, 5G technology, the Hawaiian self-determination that's going on. That's one thing. The second thing is we need to reform public education, like you mentioned before, is about culture. How do we educate our children, our youth, so that they have a sense of cultural identity while this process of globalization is happening? So that's
Nice.
kind of that in a nutshell for me.
Well, I looked at your website, samforhawaii, right, .com, and there I saw you did Spotify. So it was nice. You took different things. I'm letting our audience know, we can go over lots of stuff, but you're a candidate who's being active and putting his positions up. I appreciate it. I have the same kind of thing. I want people to look. The more they look, the better they can feel about voting for me. Same with you. I saw
PERALTA
that.
podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon. You can hear a little bit about where I'm coming from on these short clip, bite-sized podcast pieces of mine.
And I'm the long version. I'm the version that says, hey, we can do those short bits. It's like, hi, I'm from Maui. I've gone to these schools. Vote for me. Versus, okay, now that I'm giving you some time, where is you? That's the difference. Like, for example, now I have been watching candidates and talking to them for so long. And the greatest problem that I see is that today agreeing with me is easy, but making what I say enough of a priority to do something about it doesn't happen easily. It's almost like you have to craft it into a bill. I have a friend, Genesis Young, watching him go through the process of working with legislators with his idea, crafting it into a bill, proposing it, putting it through committees. All that fun stuff is in your future. You're in that seat. And to me, I want to know who someone is, like you've expressed, where you are and who you are and where you come from in general. Because a specific vote, it's hard to say, well, how would you vote if the river goes that way? Every situation is new, but it's nice to know who is there. So what's your passion? Pick up one of your passions and kind of let's explore it some.
With what you just said, the politics world is a process as well as relational based, but also not everyone's going to agree with you. And I think feeling confident in your calling and what you're called to is very important. So I'm a university student at UH West Oahu as well, and my study has been in political science, specifically environmental politics. And I think that I'm most passionate about is just this quote comes to mind by Thomas Berry. He says, "The earth is primary, human is derivative." And it talks about that in a Hawaiian worldview thinking, the proverb is, he ali'i ka aina, he kawa ke kanaka. So a lot of the times, like I said before, we have this perspective that's very egocentric, very anthropocentric, very human focused. It's like us humans are the center of the universe. And a lot of the times our policies, our laws, our perspectives, especially in this Western perspective, has been based on the great I am, the self. iPhone, iTV, iMicrowave, whatever you can have, that's for you. You are the boss, you're the king. But what I'm learning through this environmental politics course and my studies is that the earth is primary, human is derivative, meaning that the earth has laid down laws, universal laws. It has shown us how to be sustainable. We talk about Hawaii, our ahupua'a system, And these things, if we just look at it and learn from nature itself, we'll be able to solve many of our problems today. One of the problems that we are having today is we're so disconnected from reality, meaning what's in front of us. And we create these abstract worlds of numbers, statistics, graphs, and charts all through our human lens. And I'm not saying here that we have to use rocket science. If we learn from the native Hawaiians, Ahupua'a system, it was a land management system, the best engineered from top of the mountain to the sea. They're sustainable, they're growing food.
So here we are. You know that. I know that. I've come to learn that. I've been here a long time, since 88. You probably were born somewhere near that.
87. That's when Punana Lil started.
I've been talking about the things that you're talking about 3 decades ago. And so the general, if you look at who I am and what I've been doing, did you know that I ran for council and mayor in 92, 94, 96? I was the Green Party candidate. Why? I was talking about solar and sustainability with the head of Maui Electric on the in 95. By example, and talking with Pundi about raising money from off island and the world who can support our arts. None of that has happened. I am facing, if I don't sit in a seat to be able to bring these up so the public goes, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's help you make that happen. I've watched, so when I talk to you, I'm thinking it's great. There are people that have faced it. If I live 30 years, I'll already be 100 more. But I want to know that someone's taking an idea that I've had and held in my heart and is now brave enough to run, has the knowledge about things in a global way, and realizes, like you said, when you're operating as a state house, you're acting to deal with locally. So here, when we're local, the big world, they are destroying themselves as we speak. But here on this island, we have to think kind of differently, I think. We're an island. And our notions about self-sustainability are more than just we have to. It's like, we have to. Here we are in COVID times, right? So now everything's going to yet be this swirl of uncertainty. We are certain that if they need something on the mainland, they won't send it to us. So we have to be
over 90% of our goods is imported.
And everyone knows that. And yet it's going to take a strong leader like you to propose things like, we want to create a system that favors local produce, so that we can support our local economy, both here in Maui, but statewide. So all the people I've seen that were in the local government here in Maui, it's amazing. They're all moving. It's like, okay, we've done what we can locally. It's time to move to the state. You see Kelly King doing it, right? And everyone's positioning. So you're going to be, so in that kind of environment, I think you're probably, from what I'm hearing, you're going to have a lot of people aligning with your values. Are you very much different than, I don't know Justin Woodson. I guess he's been a teacher and then he's been involved in this. I never know when people get in what they were doing before or why. But obviously you are ready to run and passionate. When you want to get into this, I know I'm sounding funny, but people are constantly coming up to me, and I imagine to you, asking you to solve problems like, hey, on my street, there are 3 people, I have a long street, that are sleeping in their cars. And the police tell me that they can only do so much. There's nowhere to put these people. And what these housing programs, they don't, again, you're hearing my commentary. They seem a little.
What you're saying so far really resonates with me. And that's why I'm running in this campaign. There's the political aspect, what you're talking about, but there's different layers and dimensions to reality. As far as what we know is what we can know, there's the political, there's the philosophical underlying that, And beneath that is the spiritual. And that's why I'm into just education reform, meaning that there's deep traumatic stresses within Hawaii. Talk about epigenetics, talking about birth story trauma, mother-father wounds, mother-father wounds going from generations past. Unless we are educating our people to become global citizens, they first have to deal with what's inside. And you can change the outside, but unless change always starts and begins within. So I just said this the last time, we're trying to lead the future by what we did in the past. So education reform, talk about what you were talking about. It's the culture, it's the arts. And as a matter of fact, the artists, the musicians are the modern day prophets. If we're listening to what they have to say, we're seeing the direction, the new wave, the new vision, the new hope that's just along the horizon, ready to hit Hawaii. The story that work hard, get a job, go to college, start a family, that narrative is done. I asked a lot of my friends, a lot of the upcoming youth and high schoolers, they don't believe that anymore. So we need to educate our people. And one of the things about education is that it transforms and it increases the brain synapses in your body. It brings healing from the inside out. A lot of the trauma and the pain that we have right now, as far as three things that hurt Hawaii, is cardiovascular disease, cancer, and diabetes. Cardiovascular disease, our veins are clogged. You know what's clogged as well? Our water streams. Also cancers. Cancer is just the cells multiplied so quickly that they're trying to survive, but it's isolated from the whole. You know what's isolated from the whole here on Maui? Our community. We gotta have these connections that are happening stronger and deeper, but in emerging ways rather than in declining industry ways. And education is so key.
How can we do it physically? I'm suddenly finding in the last 30 years, in 1993, I started dreammaui.com website. I'm still using it now, right? 30 years, the internet and this artificial intelligence, create a better world somewhere else, other input, buy from somewhere else, talk to people somewhere else, be in this global community. And I'm now in the lump in my room here. That's where's my community? So how do we get the community out?
Yeah, the metaverse,
music, art, things that, we have to create more community events. Like I say, now with the time, suddenly we're hearing a resurgence of COVID. And so our campaigning may be right like this more than out at events very soon. And that's why I think it's really important that we have these kind of discussions.
Community is important. And what you're talking about is we come out of the dust of the earth, in Genesis, that God made humans from the dust. And it's right now that's known, a teaspoon of soil has 10 to the 13 trillion living organisms in it. Those types of living organisms in the soil is directly related to the kinds of organisms you have in your biodome, in your gut health. So if you want to come back into reality, really it's talking about what Native Hawaiians have always talked about, uamau ke ea o ka aina I ka pono. The law is in the land. If you want to have a pono, a righteous, a right standing relationship, you got to turn back into what they would call Mother Earth. Earth is known for this feminine dimension of reality because it births. It's the environment. It's the creative energy. The Greeks called it Gaia. Gaia is the environment. Confucius called it reciprocity. He summed up all of the earth and the living organisms together in one unifying relationship as reciprocity. That means no one's giving or taking. There's no lose-win situation, but everything is together. That's the mother that I'm talking about, and not in this spiritual new age way, but in the sense that it's this dimension to reality that we forgot because of the industrial age. The industrial age is really a fragmented from the masculine feminine dimensions of life. With the masculine energy, it's really talked about consuming, absorbing, inserting, taking. So it's just this broken piece that as people, we need to look into indigenous cultures and come back to reciprocity.
It's so interesting. I'm
Yeah.
listening to you and
Don't
I'm
get me
thinking,
started.
no, I know, but it's good. You know what I'm thinking? It echoes. I'm Mama, Maui Arts and Music Association, that feminine, the receiving, and Papa, people aligned in positive action. So you see, what I see is I've got this thing for 30 years, and now it's going to wake up, and there's going to be Sam Peralta and people that are led by and recognize those truths, and they're going to recognize what I've been talking about all this time. Now I have an army to stand with me and me with them, because we're people aligned in positive action. We know how to help each other and receive like a mother and birth things and grow them, and mass. I talk in similar, maybe different words, a master apprentice program. Well, that's what you're talking about. Talk about education, to take the wise, old, traditional knowledge from the Hawaiians and marry it up with new technology to come out with a new integrated global presence being. Can you imagine the elevation of the Hawaiian culture and all the things that we dream of? So
One of
all
my
that
teachers said, what's good for Hawaiians is good for the rest of the world.
yeah.
And
So, but now just before, so here now I'm looking at this and I say, you and I, we're good dreamers, and I'm trying to get the community to move. And it's like, okay, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? I want it now. I want it now. I don't want to pay. I want it now. I want it now. Give it to me. I deserve it. Well, where do we find it? So now comes the fun part. Laws are like, okay, there's this Big Joe, and Big Joe owns 90% of the island, or I'm making it just a name, and it wouldn't even be a crumb for them. But if they partnered with others in a certain way, we could solve the housing problem. We can deal with the fact of water. If you've watched my shows or will, you'll see I have solutions and I've seen solutions. I'm not the Wizard of Oz, but I find and know people. I attract people that want to take this beautiful Maui and make it better. Show us how to do it in a way, so that's what's needed to integrate into this government in a seats like yours or in me in council, because otherwise I watch the economic development people. You'll talk about statements, but here locally, people come to me and want grants in certain categories. Everything is inside a box where the county, the government, the state needs to reach out and have a division that establishes public-private partnerships more aggressively, so that the money and the support comes from the public, not the government. The government's supposed to be servants of the people. We, with the great ideas, we're not going to them for the money. We have the money. We have to encourage. So go to Mr. 90%, Big Joe, and say, hey, Big Joe, you own 90% of the island anyway. What if the people in your community would benefit? You don't even have to move the money out of your account. You can use it as credit in a loan that will allow you to partner with the construction people and partner with the homeowners and have equity sharing homes, and we can do it in ecologically beneficial way. I mean, I'm just touching the surface. So that's where things like tax credits. Oh, I've been talking about tax credits for 3 decades here, and I'm still watching them spread through. And they start to be proud. We're putting solar in. We're good. We're talking about wind. These are 30-year-old ideas. No one's mentioned, if you have columns of a certain height and width, you can put crystals under it and generate power from gravity. Technology is not being explored because we have a limited, and then I'll let you go. Listen, you've heard the expression, I don't like to swear too much, but this is okay, I hope. Sometimes it's difficult to remember that your original intention is to drain the swamp when you're up to your ass in alligators. There are so many problems going on. We're talking about these things, but where's the money? Where do you get the money? And that's why I'm going to give you a floor here to say, where do you get the money And how do you get the public to say, yes, we feel that anger, but that really isn't anger. That's we want to get in action to make our lives better. We have ideas, and you all listen like you're the kings and queens in the government, but we're powered by the people. So that Mr. Big Joe is now contributing to he's getting richer while doing this and is able to help solve major problems here. I don't know if you hear about these things now, like Mike Atherton and the Waikapu development. First of all, what does affordable mean is a whole other mystery of life, right? I'm sure that's an area you're going to probably get into.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about how we're going to finance all these solutions and what laws you might want? That's why I'm mentioning it, because I wonder when I think of Justin Woodson and any of these people, it's like, okay, now that you're there, what can you do to help us orchestrate and get through these problems? There are groups. I know I talked a lot. I'm basically want to set it up to give you a chance to speak.
No, Jason, I love it. You said a handful, 3 things comes to mind. The first thing why I'm running for office is because change begins within. Before we look outside at someone else, we got to take a look at ourselves and what we've been telling our people and what the narrative has been for so long. It's been, there's going to be someone to save you. The statement now, no one's going to save you. No one's going to save us. That's why education reform is the high stressor of importance right now. The next generation of youth are raised on indigenous knowledge. They're raised in modern technology. They're raised with the current issues we have. Unless we start generating the kind of smarts that we need to elevate Maui to a higher vibrancy, we're going to end up with the same type of people making the same type of decisions. And I myself have a capacity, but these upcoming generations, I worked in Hawaiian immersion schools. I worked in our public schools for the past 10 years. I see what these kids can do in robotics, in programming, and engineering. They're way past most of the people who are running our departments right now as far as technical skills and know-how. So what I'm saying, we got to look at our education first, and out of that, generating the brain power, the smarts power, and making our people feel like this is their home so they can take responsibility to come into it. You talked about mother, the feminine dimension. In Hawaii, it's Papa Hanau Moku. She comes from the Kumulipo, the source out of unconsciousness. Lipo is the dark abyss, but also symbolically unconsciousness. Hawaii has been unconscious for so long, but since this cultural revitalization movement, we're understanding that we're coming into a new era. The stating is, Hau kapo ua au Hawaii, that Hawaii has been enlightened. It has the answers because we're the convergence of cultural, ethnic, national, and we interact with the world's superpowers. Why can't we be world leaders? Why can't we create our students to bring international trade? Why can't we have our students think and problem solve on how to program cryptocurrency for Hawaiian determination movements? Why can't we ask bigger questions? Instead, we're just trying to revive the old thing. We're looking at the same problem in the same way. What needs to happen, this new whole wave of divergent thinkers in our public schools or wherever they are right now, is saying different solutions and asking different questions. That's what's going to get out of this rut. Sometimes when I look at Maui, it looks like a museum. We're trying to preserve things and we're just trying to make things go just enough. But we have resources on the island, and the best resource is you, it's me, it's our ohana here on this island. We have the best of the best. Maui no ka oe. That means Maui excels. So what are we excelling in? Are we declining in old plantation politics movements where we give our power, where monopolies and cohorts of monopolies and environmental capitalists take and make decisions for us? Or are we going to start raising up in leadership? I know the Department of Agriculture has been trying to hire people all month. I think they had 4 applications or something like that. So it really starts before we look at the setting up infrastructure. Is our people ready for it? And education reform. We got to maybe think of ways we can put back woodworking, hula, lei making, sports. emphasize things that increase the capacity for our students to work together, to collaborate, because it's said that students best learn from each other. So why do we have somebody from somewhere else trying to teach our students who knows what, when our students here, they're ready, they're willing, we just have to fire them away. We have to put them with mentors that'll be able to shape and guide them into their calling and their gifting. Because if we can do that, we're going to be more powerful than we think. Actually, it might scare the world because Hawaii is going to be leading. I forgot where I was going with that.
Well, that was a good place. Hawaii is going to be leaving. I can tell you, though, the one that always gets me is now we want to be able to create opportunity at global basis. And yet, where are the outlets? What are the outlets? I guess this internet, and I mean, that's why I created a portal. I mean, I laugh when I see Pundy sitting in stone there at the Mac, because we talk, that's how we talk. MauiArts.org is the cultural center. MauiArtsAndMusic.org, that's me. Well, that's not accidental. That's because we had a plan. Just because these people didn't really listen all these years, I interview them all, but they just don't really hear. We were going to try to showcase Maui's art, music, and culture to the world, have the world buy, and that would raise money to supplement development important technologies to create our self-sustainability and fund the cultural center and have all the big venues along the island all aligned. And none of that happened. 30 years. Here you are.
That didn't happen.
Well, it's happening, but it happens in selfish pockets. It's not integrated coordinate. It's not saying we're an island community. It's saying, I want this piece. If I don't want, I'm gone. I'm going to take my piece and I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to come from the mainland and I'm going to buy this piece and rent it back to you guys at a higher rate and justify it because I just bought it that way and drive the prices up and have no way for you to be able to do anything about it because it's America, land of the free and the home of the mighty. Well, that's what we're talking about, getting people here an alternative way to do it.
Yeah.
You know,
well,
so in when I'm having you in the seat there in the State House, here comes a bill that says we want to do, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for what kind of legislative things can really help these, because I agree with everything you said. I really honestly, I feel very supported as an old man that the youth of today and tomorrow have grown up and they are taking responsibility for the world that we dumped on them, and how we didn't do it. There are a few guys like me, but you see, the dollar replaces everything as the new god to so many people. But now we have a chance to save it. Tax credits, I wonder sometimes, are you able to create, if you're out of state, they do it in real estate. If you buy and you're from outside the country, you pay this much. And if you're from outside the state, you pay this much extra. Those kind of things. Now, how can we do it to amplify a local solution? Maybe it's a trade credit or some kind of legislation that you put in that when everyone has a paycheck of X, they get a housing voucher and a food voucher that gives them the boost. But then we have to look at, well, are we going to create something artificial? That's the thing that I'm looking at. It's like, okay, government is here. How can government help? Not just be there and then claim responsibility for making 1,200 houses come in 3 years. What about now? We need houses now. What about all these homeless people now? There are all kinds of categories. How about someone just sold their house and they now have nowhere to live because they don't have $4,000 to rent a house, or a 2-bedroom in Maui Meadows that was a cottage, $3,200. Wait a minute. Things are nutty. So that's the legislation I'm talking about for you. And I'm thinking that's the power of a state role to me, where you can.
Yeah. Legislation is the power of the purse. That means that's where the money comes from. part of voting locally and voting for someone like me coming from this island, we have the networks and connections, and we're on the ground running. That means we know where the money can go to that will help the people who actually from here. Also, what that is able to do, we're able to ask questions to international or foreign developers or private organizations that will hold them accountable. As far as policy goes, we know who's doing the work. And if we can direct resources, distribute resources, that's the job, wealth distribution, then we can be able to raise the consciousness and awareness for the rest of the island that might shift the paradigm from just getting by to I can create and innovate. And right now, I feel like the current government system sees things in a box. They see it in a closed system. And we know from the law of thermodynamics, in closed systems, things come into equilibrium. That means they get static and flat. What we need to do, and we learned this from game theory, artificial intelligence theory, is that we need to release our people to create and innovate. And as they do that, as we create movements to learn, to grow, to fail, to succeed, collectively, we sharpen ourselves and we come to a place that through harmonizing, through relationships, and through innovation, we start flowing together. When you put something in a closed system, you have to work it out like clockwork. Every gear, every nut and bolt has to be perfect. One jam up, that whole system falls down. And I think we spend a lot of resources in administration heavy type places and departments on working out a closed system. But what we learn currently through these kind of theories, and it's been proven, is we need to release our people to create and innovate and make mistakes and create all these types of different ways of innovation, and it ends up flowing together. For example, they had this one test. They wanted to teach vacuums how to vacuum a room. So they had one group programmed a robot to map out the room, but every time it hit a bump or hit a curb, it made a mistake and it just glitched out. The other group, what they did is took a bunch of robots and just programmed them randomly. And they programmed these robots randomly. And as they were going and hitting each other, they kind of figured it out on themselves. And after a while, they all started moving in sync with one another. And if robots can do that, I hope that us as humans can do that to beat the AI.
Well, I love that thought. I wonder, when I say I wonder, I'm glad you have that faith, because I know that if we all link together, we float. If we keep doing this separate thing, we sink. And I sure do hope, I really mean that. I hope that the next generations are up to the task that you said, because artificial intelligence can simulate perfect so easily. I don't want to say discourages, but it's almost like, people, you don't need to know how to multiply. We got a calculator. Mm-hmm. We don't need to know the details. We got to this. I worry. So I worry.
Well, you don't need to plant your own food. You don't need to grow your own food. You don't need to know how to cook, because these fast food companies from somewhere else are going to come over and provide it for you. They'll give you the GMO, the monocrop food. They'll give you the food that's not filled with nutrients. So that's what I'm talking about.
And charge you a premium, right? But I am looking forward to seeing what you said is true. I am great. Look, when I 30 years ago said, "Hey, let's promote the art and culture and do this and do this, and this goes here and this goes here, and we all can do it together and we will all thrive. Rising tide raises all ships." I start to sound like a robot myself. But you know what? People there's lots of, well, I got mine. I have mine. Well, we have ours. We are different than you. We are protecting us because these people are going to do this to us. So I hope, I pray that the young people realize that going wide together and being deep together and really doing what you said. Because if we do the self-sustainability thing and we all come together, we are unstoppable. We can do it all. I really do believe that. I just am hoping that young people take the time to look for someone like yourself and see, oh, well, there's this young guy here. You know, you excuse this as an old 71-year-old guy. Everyone's young, but you're a man with passion who has lived his life and realizes he wants to do public service and comes forward with tremendous enthusiasm and knowledge. And I can tell you, you have to do research to be able to stand up and bear the scrutiny and you're willing to do that. I'm very happy that you came to see me. What kind of stuff is, like, if you were here, we know your website, and all the websites are going to be sitting up there, so we'll be able to find you. What's as you're talking, I hope I've kind of made it unusual in that I don't have a set of questions, and I'm not asking about a specific bill that's on the table. I'm sure that you, like when you have something that you have to deal with, you then jump in and see the detail, right? But you have the capacity to look.
The devil's in the details.
But you have the capacity. That's what you're showing us now. One of those 3-minute clips wouldn't have given people the passion. I'm just as me talking, which is why I went for this long interview form, because I really think that that's how they're going to see. If they listen, like you said, someone once told me, oh, no, no more 12 seconds. Now you only have 8 seconds. They're going to be on your page 8 seconds. If they don't get excited in 8 seconds, they're gone. But I'm the long form, the one that says, look, it's good that you've stayed all this time because you can see where I get angry. You can see where I have a hole in my head. And you can imagine, you've spoken to people that after a while, they're so comfortable, they show you who they are. And that's it may sound like a funny thing, but to me, it's a chance that I hope that candidates, their passion comes out. I can see you are passionate and you are there to do a job. Am I wrong? You sound like you want to do this for everyone.
What you said in Hawaiian, the word is pili meka hanona. That means intergenerational transmission. We need everybody to do this. And another proverb in Hawaiian is nana ike kumu, look to the source. So it's not like I'm making this stuff up. If you are at all up to date with Hawaiian history and what the Hawaiian kingdom was previous to what happened, Hawaii was leading in innovation and technology. It had light before the White House. It had progressive as far as women of color leading the country. There was no slaves allowed on this island. They were doing international trade. They had world currencies. Hawaii was at its leading cutting edge until a group of cohort monopolies, environmental capitalists came in and thought they were the great I am. So what I'm trying to get away is this anthropocentric view, the view of ego, saying that I have, or as humans, we have the answers, but ua mau ke ea o ka aina I ka pono. That's our state motto. The law is in the land. We have to look at what the aina provides. Aina means what sustains you. So you got to ask yourself the question, what's sustaining you and what's your kuleana? The kuleana, if you want to know what a website to go to find or check things out, is www.registertovote.hawaii. That's not the website, but you get what I'm saying. We need everyone, as our level of consciousness rises up, we're going to have to do concrete actions. We're going to have to register to vote. I'm going to have to talk about concrete things. Like we shouldn't spray glyphosate on our state roads next to public schools because it's going to affect our youth and our kids. We should put we should highlight curbs next to old folks' homes because they're tripping and falling, and 74% of those falls end up in death. So being macro and micro, we're going to have to shift gears. We're going to have to start coming up with common terminology, because if we don't, the flood of globalization is going to hit Hawaii, and our people will not know what to do. We already seen what they're doing. They're going to Vegas. They're going off the islands, and they're learning more about Hawaiian culture in these places like Arizona State Prison than actually here at home. One of the last things I want to say is we need our people to stop pulling each other down. It's that crab mentality. As the crab climbs up the bucket, one crab pulls each other down. We need to just feel free to make mistakes, but still have that accountability. So that's the Pili Meka Hanona, the intertransmissional transmission, where youth and older people are holding each other accountable, but also helping each other to grow.
You're in District, what, 5?
District 9,
District
Kahului,
9.
Punene, Maui Lani, Sandhills.
Okay. I'm hoping that our viewers will realize you are in a district. So you're out there trying to meet everybody. I hope that you'll use this, if you can, to put out to people, because I know that people will be very happy to have gotten up close and personal with you, Sam. You're a passionate young man. I very much appreciate you joining me here. I know this is a little unusual that I'm a candidate. What question would you ask me? If you're going to vote for me, right? What's important that I can answer for you?
If you had all the resources that you needed, what would you do?
If I had all the resources, I would declare a state of emergency and provide minimum housing and safe area. That would be my first move, to help people off the street and find them into programs that they can be gainful and feel a little self-respect, and put them into the housing program as we develop it. It is extremely under-resourced, doesn't have enough people, but I believe that's the thing that I would do first. Empower the people that are hurting to help each other and themselves by giving them a clean and fair place to start that process.
Ooh,
until all these programs are happening. That's the first thing I do.
and
Second thing I do, I mean, my big list is I would, there's a word called eminent domain. That's a very funny word. It means we're the government. We like that piece. It's essential. We take it. I like the power of eminent domain to be a good influence on those that do have, that we don't want to take their land. We'd like them to partner with us. So I would be much more aggressive in creating solutions by getting I want to say the deep pocket, by having those that have, to encouraging them to share willingly, like Jesus was talking. When in Rome, give the Romans what they want. We got something else going on. And that's, we want an effect. Give the power if they want power. What a beautiful thing. We can praise them. You want to build a parking lot or a playground? Let's have a music concert and tell them, hey, you guys are brilliant. You just raised the money to build this playground. Whatever it takes. We are coming upon a time when the people in our offices, I think, well, I sure talk a lot. They need to be.
I feel like you have this, I feel this urgency in you, the passion, the wisdom, and even just the images behind you. You can tell you're full of art and music and creativity. It's like you're trying to bridge
30 years, it's time. It's like, this is the time. How long do I have to wait until I say I'm going to run again? And now, Maui, having seen all these things I keep showing you, and you see there are people like Sam, and we have a culture of people ready to really embrace the Hawaiian culture and have them come back and integrate here. And even before one talks about ownership, what do we own? We're all users of this land. Let's nourish and use the land as our base and survive and thrive. That's how I know that's sort of a big, wide thing. And that way I can serve you. So when you're in the state, you know that locally you're going to be supported when you passing important issues. The people here are listening to what you're saying and trying to create the runway so your programs are more effective here. That's what I would say. My little question. I am over the top, and I know I'm over the top, but it's only because I've watched the people, I talk to people on these shows about ideas, and then they don't do them. They don't even explore them. They're back to that old way. And I want to, blow up. Remember when Jack in the Box blew up the clown? They had that campaign about their little clown outside. We need to forget that there's a box. There is no box.
And in all the quantum theories, everything's more connected than you think.
Well, I'm going to give you the floor if you want to say a closing statement. I know that I'm all over the map, but I know that a candidate like yourself may want to deliver a message in your way, and I want to give you the room for that. Please.
No, you're not all over the map. I feel like you're making connections where the connections need to be, and you're bringing new life into it and vibrancy. And if we don't do that, we're going to lose generations. We're going to lose time. We're going to lose lots of information that is so important to Maui for right now. As far as closing statement, I have this tagline: think global, act local. So thinking globally means honoring the human heritage of all nations, ethnic groups, cultures, and tongues, and understanding that we get to, by default, inherit these things as the human race and act locally, meaning we put those things practice regionally. What the Native Hawaiians do is the ahupua'a system. It's a way of sustainability and management that's dependent on region. So living in this time and space, we need to be able to collect all of what we know as the human species, invent and create and innovate modern technology so that we can have a mutually exchanged relationship with Earth, with mountain to sea. They call it the biosphere, which is the whole thing that makes up where we're living in. And my hope, my prayer, my policies will emphasize that we need to take off just one lens of looking at things, and we need to have a holistic view of looking at governance. We have to have holistic societies rather than anthropocentric societies.
Well, all you old people, you don't know what anthropocentric means, but you will learn because people like Sam are going to be bringing up your knowledge base. Sam, thank you for really joining me here. It's really been a pleasure.
My pleasure.
I know it's early in the election season, but I know that we are on August 13th primary. I don't know if that'll affect you based on numbers of people in your race, but you're a pleasure to speak to, and I hope that our audience takes serious consideration of Sam PERALTA. Good candidate.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me. I hope if ever you want to come back again, you're always welcome. We're always in this together because we're doing it together to make that difference. Thank you.
Love you.
And thank you guys out there for watching The Neutral Zone, MauiNeutralZone.com. It's anything but neutral, but we're not carrying a sword. We're looking to have a basket to see what we can put together. And this is the kind of interview that inspires me, and I hope inspires you. Thank you for joining us, everyone. See you again. Aloha.